What's up, y'all? It's your girl Chanel from Complex Simplicity. Happy Good Friday. Happy Easter. Have a great weekend. I wanted to come on because it's about that time during the week for me to hit you with another vlog. And I put out there on my Instagram page, which is at Complex Simplicity 09, and my Facebook page, which is Complex Simplicity. If there are any particular topics that you would want me to cover, let me know. This way it's not all about what Chanel wants to talk about, but me giving my perspective, my opinion, my take on certain topics that you all may want to talk about or want me to talk about. So last week, we did have a taker. Someone wanted my thoughts on cheating, more specifically cheating on the internet or when you're on these dating apps. Do I consider that to be cheating? I pretty much addressed that as well as my feelings and thoughts on the topic of cheating as a whole. And this week we had another taker, and this person wanted me to give my spiel on how to be supportive to two loved ones or friends who are going through something with one another, how to really be able to be supportive and to know your boundaries, to know how to best handle the situation, whether you're friends with two friends, female friends who are going through it and you're trying to be that voice of reason, how to support both without one or the other feeling like you're taking sides. Or let's say you're friends with a married couple or a couple that's in a relationship together, how to navigate through all of that without making one of the parties feel like you're taking this person's side, which is definitely a tricky situation to be in. Sorry, y'all, my hair is feeling crazy right now. That's why. There we go. So have I been in this situation? I've kind of been in situations where I might have been friends with two other women who are kind of at odds, and I kind of had to make sure that I was loyal to both, if that makes sense, or being very neutral. That's more so what I was. I was very neutral in the situation where I didn't want one of my friends to feel as if I was really taking the other friend's side. Now, in conflicts, we all already know there's your side that may have some truths, some great points. I may be able to be like, I get where you're coming from. Then there's the other side, the other person's side. They have just as many great points, and I understand where they're coming from, and then you're able to also see where both of your loved ones or friends may kind of like made a mistake, right? And so I prefer to be neutral. It's easier probably if I'm experiencing this with two girlfriends of mine. Like I said before, I've gone through this where I'm just neutral. My role was always to encourage them to be able to talk to one another. Well, maybe you should talk to her about what your concerns are, that your feelings were hurt, how her reaction or response or her behavior hurt you or affected you. My ideal was always to try to give both of them the same advice, which is for them to address their issues and concerns with one another. Now, of course, each friend has a different personality. Some of your girlfriends may be ready to pop off, right? Real quick. So it's like, okay, and when you express how you're feeling, please don't be defensive. Be willing to listen to what the other party has to say, right? Just as much as you want to be heard, they need to be heard, and it's important for you to give them that opportunity to be heard by you, right? And then you may have another friend who may be a little more passive, so it's encouraging them to be very clear on what it is that their concerns or their hurt feelings are, and to not cower or shy away from really addressing everything, right? Now, if you're going through this with the couple that you're friends with, they're married, and you're kind of finding yourself trying your best to help them to, whether it's to get counseling, to get some kind of other help, it's really sticky with married folks because, and it's funny, I was just talking about this with my mom yesterday, or she was talking to me about this, where with married folks, your business is supposed to be your business. I'm married. I've been married for almost 3.5 years, right? And I'm of the school of thought where when my husband and I may be at odds, or we may be in conflict, we may be going through our own thing, I don't go and run and tell my friends. I don't discuss it with coworkers. I don't even discuss it with my own mom and dad, who've been married forever and a day, right? And who have actually counseled people who are going to get married. They've offered premarital counseling. So my parents, they come from a very knowledgeable and wise place, right? But for me, I treat my marriage like it's sacred. And so whatever my husband and I may go through, that is for us and God to figure out. That's just my opinion. Now, I'm not saying that, here and there, I may not ask for certain advice, but even if I did, I would try to do it in a way where that other person didn't know what the hell my husband and I were going through. You know what I'm saying? I feel like what happens in a marriage needs to stay there. There has to be some kind of safe space where, other people don't know what's going on in your house in that way, or in your marriage, in your relationship. And if it gets to the point where you really do need a third party, that's what marital counseling is for. Speak to a professional, a truly neutral party who will be able to hopefully help both parties navigate through whatever struggles they're experiencing within their marriage or relationship. So I'll just put that out there as my disclaimer. I'm really not in the business as a married woman, and my friends will tell you, since I've been married, they really can't tell you probably anything that my husband and I might have gone through, within our own marriage or relationship. I strategically don't involve them in that, right? Because for me, what my husband and my marriage is sacred to me, and pretty much God should be able to help us through things, or a marriage counselor. And if I really felt like I needed to talk to somebody, I'd be more apt in a wise way to talk to my parents, because I know that been there, done that, married way longer than I have, and are very wise, God-fearing people. And I trust and believe they would give me, the best advice ever, right? So just putting that out there, something to keep in mind for the married folks out there. Everybody has a different perspective. I welcome your thoughts. But if you find yourself in a situation where you're friends with a married couple and they're going through a lot of tumultuous things within their marriage, and both parties happen to confide in you, I would say the most you can try to do is, pray for them, pray with them, individually, of course, and perhaps encourage that they go to counseling. Try to point them in the direction of where they perhaps can get the help that they may need within their marriage. It's really not much one can do, maybe be a supportive listener. Please don't be quick to give advice, especially if you're not married, and married people are coming to you for your perspective and for your support emotionally. I would say don't be quick to give advice. If anything, do more listening and try to point them in the direction of where they actually can go. Because what happens is when you're not married and you don't really know and understand what it is to be in a marriage, the day-to-day of it all, it's going to be very hard for you to come to a place of probably giving the best advice. And I even say all the time to my girlfriends, because I've had friends who've gone through marital things, it happens, right? Even I, as a married woman for 3.5 years, don't feel comfortable just relinquishing and soliciting marital advice, because I've only been married for 3 years. I'm not an expert on this. You know what I'm saying? I'm in this trying to figure ish out like everybody else, So I would say if you're going to go, point them in the direction of maybe another married couple who either is known for counseling or who's gone through enough in their relationship or marriage where part of their passion or their ministry or what they do is to give back and help other couples. Like, really try to point them in the direction of where they should be to get that kind of assistance they may need. And I know single people who give the best advice when it comes to relationships. But like I said, what I will say is when you're not married and you don't live that life, there's just certain things you'll never understand. Likewise with parenting. I'm not a parent. I've been in the social work field working with children and families for 13 years now, but I still would never solicit advice to parents. Why? Because that's not something that I have experienced personally myself. I may have all the book knowledge and all the professional work knowledge in the world, but as far as what it really looks and feels like to be a parent day to day, every day, I don't have that kind of experience. I don't have that kind of knowledge to pull from. That's not what my life has been. And so I'm definitely not going to be out here trying to solicit advice, or even when asked, give advice. And if I'm asked, I'll say I'm coming from a professional opinion as far as what I've experienced in my line of work for the past 13 years. But please know, I'm not a parent. I have not been a parent of my own children, or of any child for that matter, day in, day out, to really be able to understand fully the plight of a mother. That's not something that I'm well versed in just yet. Now, if and when I'm blessed to become a mom, then that's a different story. I'll be able to give advice or share experiences from where I actually am at that point. If I've been a mother for a year, if I was a mother for 2 years, if I was a mother for 10 years, and that's a different story. So likewise with marriage, I would like to suggest to single people, or even if you're in a relationship but you've never been married, just understand that there's certain nuances of marriage you'll never know, you'll never get until you're actually married. And I remember hearing this being said to me plenty of times prior to me getting married, and I 100% understand. You're not going to know what this life is about if you're not in it. And so for those single people or non-married people who are being asked for their support and advice of married people going through a lot of stuff in their relationship or marriage, the best I can say is point them in the direction of where they can get the best level of skilled support that maybe you can't give, but you can still be a friend and give a listening ear, and make sure that whatever they confide in you about, that you really don't share with others, and you keep it, private, because marriage is a very private thing. And that you, being how both the couple are your friends, you try not to take sides, and whatever you do say, let it be with the heart and with the desire and with the perspective of helping them to be able to have those uncomfortable conversations with one another. And so, being a supportive friend, I pride myself on being a supportive friend, but there is a lot that comes with that. I'll keep it way real. There are times where being a supportive friend means you need to be real and say what it is, whatever your friend may need to hear that they may not particularly want to hear, but they need to hear. It may mean knowing when to just listen and be quiet and not jump to have something to say to them. There are plenty of times where I'll do a lot more listening than I do talking, to really try to understand where that person is coming from and what level of support they may actually need, And so, it's a lot that comes with it. And also being able to know when certain things are over your head. I've experienced where, I've had people I know going through DV stuff and things that are over my head. The most I can do is tell you the obvious, but in those cases, I probably try to do more listening so I know how to pray for you in an intelligent way. Just knowing that sometimes it's okay to not have something to always say. And then there are other cases where I've had friends who are going through emotional, mental health things. I have a lot of experience in my background with that, so there may be more knowledge that I can give or response that I can have that's helpful. But even then, I still try to do more listening than not, and pick my words wisely so that whatever I am saying, when my loved one or my friend is in that fragile state, is not going to add to what they're going through. If anything, it's going to be a source of encouragement for them, And so sometimes that's the conundrum you can be in when you're trying to be supportive of your loved ones, your family, your friends, where it's just having that balance of knowing what to say, when to say something, when to keep your mouth shut and not say anything, when to challenge your loved one lovingly, when to say, listen, this is out of my league. I suggest that maybe you get help and this is where you can go, for that level of support that I, as your friend or loved one, can't really give you, or am not, what's the word I'm looking for? Am not, I don't want to say licensed to give you, but just, that's out of my league, So it's hard. It could be a very hard thing, especially when both parties who are going through it are connected to you. You got to be able to make sure that you're not taking sides, leaning in one direction towards one friend or loved one over the other, picking your words wisely, but still ultimately having the goal to help them to be able to have those conversations and discussions with one another in a healthy way, so that hopefully it gets them closer to where it is they need to be. And a lot of times I find in relational issues, whether it's friend to friend, lover to lover, spouse to spouse, whatever, a lot of the work that needs to be done is individually with us before we can even work on the collective. Meaning, if I'm going through something with my husband, sometimes or most times for me, it's important for me to look at myself first and say, Chanel, why did you shut down? Or Chanel, why did you respond in that way? What is it that's going on with you? It's always important for me to check in with me first, so that it's not a case of me always assuming and feeling like it's the other person's problem. Now, yes, I might have done things that I shouldn't have done or said things I shouldn't have said. Same with my husband. But at the end of the day, we both have to be able to individually, within ourselves, say, you know what? Even though I didn't like what he did or I didn't like what she did, I played myself, and I need to own that. I didn't handle this in the best of situations. I shut down, and me shutting down created a ripple effect. We have to be able to start here first. And so that's why I'm such a huge promoter of having self-awareness, owning when we F up, and really looking at us first, holding that mirror up to ourselves first before we're pointing fingers at the other person. Because it takes two people for things to go left, meaning things to not go well in relationships. It's not just one person. It takes two people for things to go left. And so, in my mind, it's important, for us to be able to look at ourselves first. And that probably would always be the advice that I give any loved one of mine. And if it's two loved ones going through it with each other, I would say, let's first start with us, meaning let's start with you. It's important to identify what you contributed. Was there anything you could have done differently that could have avoided this conflict? Are you aware of where your feelings are stemming from, what your triggers are, what's the deeper core issue? And a lot of times you find, especially in relationships, that it goes all the way back to our childhoods, why we're conditioned to, do what we do in relationships, to say the things that we say, respond the way we respond to our better half or to our friend. It all traces back to what our parents were doing. How did our parents handle conflicts and relational issues? How did our parents communicate with each other or other people when they were at odds? You'd be surprised. As I say, everything stems from your childhood. And so it's so much deeper than just a lot of times, oh, it's the other person, and he or she, they never do this or do that, or they treat me like this or that. We have to go all the way back and see why we handle things the way we handle things in relationships, So it's important. I'm a huge, and even in my own marriage, I'm big on communication. I'm big on us. Sometimes you do need your time, your day or two, to kind of clear your mind and figure it out. Or even weeks. Sometimes I'm gonna keep it real. Sometimes Communication could be dead for a couple of days when you're married, depending on what you're going through. But I'm still big on the fact of communicating whatever concerned me, whatever, and also communicating where I effed up, so the other person knows, so my husband knows my wife is going to own her ish. You know what I'm saying? When she plays herself, she's going to own it. She's not going to justify it. She's not going to try to turn the tables on me to make herself feel better and make me look like the villain. She's going to own her ish. And I think that's important. Why am I like that? Because I grew up in a household with parents who, when they were at odds and had conflicts with one another, it was very clear that they would be able to communicate and talk through it at some point and move forward. And when you move forward, the hope is that you're even more bonded and even closer than you were prior to the conflict. And so I mimic a lot of what I saw with my parents. Thankfully, I came from a pretty healthy household with parents who knew how to communicate with one another, that were in healthy and non-abusive ways. And so that's what I mirror in my marriage. Same with my husband. He didn't come from a household where his mother and father were yelling and screaming and cursing each other out and being disrespectful to one another. And so he's able to mirror whatever it was that he grew up with. And so we're very good communicators, which I'm so thankful to God about. And we're able to communicate our concerns without disrespecting one another, So everything traces back to our childhoods, folks, And so that's another thing in being a supportive friend and knowing my boundaries, especially if it's with a couple or even if it's with two other friends, mutual friends, I would say, listen, it's important to figure out where, understand how you communicate and why you communicate the way you do, and why you communicate the way you do when you're at odds with people. Was this something that you saw from home? Was this something that you kind of just learned throughout your childhood? Is this something you need to change? And what is maybe a more healthy way to be able to communicate when you're in conflict with someone, So I don't know, those are my thoughts. I hope for the person who asked me to address this topic, this kind of was helpful in some way. I guess what I'm saying overall is know your boundaries. Sometimes it's being aware that, and this is more so specifically if there are two people who who are going through something and they're reaching out to you for support. It's knowing your boundaries, knowing when you should say something, knowing what to say, and also knowing when you should just do more listening and not say anything, knowing when things are out of your league, out of your reach, still trying to point them in the direction of having those conversations with one another so that they can kind of move past things if possible or come to some kind of resolution or resolve. And understanding that if it's, the things are in realms that you're not well versed in, whether it's marriedville, whether it's parenthood, whatever it is, it's okay to say, you know what, this is kind of out of my league. And I think that, as opposed to you all kind of asking me to help you with marital things or certain things or parental things, it's important for you to go to someone who's been doing this for a long time and who's experienced in this. They're going to be able to lead and direct you in a way that I can't. I'll always be your friend and be a listening ear and some level of emotional support for you, but it's important that you seek out professionals or the right people, candidates who are going to be able to really give you the kind of help that I could never give you, because that's not where I'm at in my life. I'm not a parent, or I'm not married, I don't work in this kind of profession, understanding where your expertise kind of stops and when it's time to refer them to someone else for such help. Also making sure you remain neutral. For some people, that's a very hard thing, and for others, it's an easy thing, so that one loved one doesn't feel like you're leaning towards the other, and vice versa. And sometimes we got to shut it down and say, listen, I love you, but you need to deal with this way. I don't know that you should be coming to me with this. I strongly suggest that you go here, and I'm praying for you. I love you, and I wish you guys well. Just, I think it takes a lot of wisdom and emotional maturity to really be able to know how to navigate, how supportive to be, and knowing your boundaries, and even drawing the line for some of our loved ones who want to suck the life out of us because they're going through so much. So I hope this was helpful. Continue to rock out with your girl by going to complexsimplicity.com. And until next time.